It's going to be a busy afternoon, and everybody hung in there because, the good news, we're keeping on time. So that's a bit of a challenge with the program we have, but we had no choice to do it because it was either say yes to WAS or say no to WAS. So you know what? So we said yes. I think so. So it was a good choice, right? So thanks for everyone. I think a lot of you have been keeping an eye on ChatGPT and generative AI, and I didn't even know anything this was coming, but boy, it suddenly came fast. And I was really fortunate that a friend of mine from NVIDIA, Jeff Lowe, said, Marty, you know what? You should run this in the program. I'm just the guy who can explain it to everybody, show some really cool stuff, and get everybody excited about what's to come. Generative AI is going to come with a lot of potential, a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, but there's no question that it's here. It's growing, and there's some really cool companies doing some work on that front. So with that said, we're very fortunate to have Jeremy Krinitt from NVIDIA here to guide us, give us some idea of what's coming and what's here. And with that, I'll get off stage and give him the mic. Take it away.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. I want to thank Marty for inviting me to come and join you and talk with you today. So my role within NVIDIA is that I'm responsible for our generative AI ecosystem. I also happen to be responsible for our professional broadcast ecosystem. So this was just a match made in heaven. I knew I had to come and talk with you about this. So many of the companies that you see out here in the hallways are really core to the way that we deliver our technologies. So NVIDIA really from the beginning was really founded in order to build technologies that enabled our partners to deliver interesting experiences. So we build these really difficult to create technologies, a lot around very heavy processing, and all of this ends up enabling our partners to deliver the delightful experiences that you have. So we're involved and most well known for the GPUs that we make, which help with graphics and artificial intelligence and video. But we also have a networking business unit, NVIDIA Networking. Many know this as Mellanox. So we're very involved in things like ST2110 and providing the experience of moving video around on the network as well, very tightly coupled with our GPUs also. So this is exactly the space that I love to be in, and thank you for being here to listen to what I have to say. So generative AI has been something that's been changing very quickly, even on a daily basis. The most common question that I get being involved in this space is, what is generative AI? And so there are a lot of opinions. What I'm going to talk with you about is what is generally accepted as kind of what generative AI is. So at a very high level, it's using AI in order to create things. So that may be text, it may be images, it may be video. Here are some of the spaces where we see actual solutions out there today. Generating text, generating code, generating avatars, generating images and video, even medicines that we're going to be taking in the future. These are using generative AI technologies in order to develop them, and they're having a huge impact on the time to market and on the cost associated with what is a very expensive industry. So other things like music and voices and interactive, these technologies are incredibly flexible. One thing that's really important to cover is hasn't this been going on for a while? And it really has. So while we're seeing the next step in this process, the research in this space has been going on for many years. So here's a couple of examples of research that NVIDIA has published in this space. So the first of these is StyleGAN. So this was a technology that basically allowed you to create faces. And you may have seen this in social media, referred to as this person never existed. So all of the people in this picture, these were not people that ever existed. These are not photographs of individuals. This is AI that generated these portraits. And on the other side, you can see what we call GAUGAN. So this is technology that was researched in order to be able to allow you to create realistic landscapes. So what you see on the left is basically like finger painting, and what you get as a result on the right is a realistic landscape. So this has been an area where there's been a lot of research. So when we look at this, what's really changed? This has really taken off, and everyone's talking about it on all the social media platforms. So, what's the big deal? What's changed? So, just the other day, I was at home, and I was wondering, I was trying to bake a pie. And so how many people in here have one of those home assistants that allow you to turn on the lights and turn off the lights, or ask questions about what the weather is going to be, things like that? So I asked my assistant, I said, okay, so I'm making a pie. What are the pros and cons of using cornstarch or tapioca in my pie? And so I said, hey, Google, what are the pros and cons of using cornstarch or tapioca? And what it responded with is, I don't know, but here's some stuff I found on the web. So this sort of illustrates the difference between the technology that we were seeing before, which was really great at understanding what our simple question was and giving us an answer, and the technology that we're seeing now. So this is ChatGPT asking the same question. So you can see it's a whole article that it has created to give me the pros and cons of putting each of these things into my pie and when I might want to do one versus the other. So it was able to understand the context of comparing two things and assemble a response for me. So these technologies are incredibly good at giving us very authoritative responses. So everything that we receive back sounds like this response is from an expert. So sometimes it oversells the expertise a little bit. So the responses are not always accurate, but they sound like this is coming from an expert. So this actually speaks to some of the areas where there's still some effort going on. So let's talk a little bit about what some of the fundamental differences are about this wave of AI. And these are the technologies that are generally being referred to today as generative, is this new sort of level of detail that understands the context of what we're asking for. So what's fundamentally changed on the technology side is that all of these are based on top of what we call foundational models. So these foundational models are just humongous compared to what we were doing before. And where previously we had a model for generating a face or a model for generating a landscape, these are much more flexible. So part of that flexibility comes from the structure of the model, but part of it comes from how much data those models have consumed. So these have ballooned in size, and they take huge resources to compute and to be able to build these models that have this flexibility. So they can consume all this different variety of data, and we get up to this foundational model. And one of the important things is that this might not be the endpoint. We have different threads that come off of this in order to be able to provide us with the capabilities that we really want. But it can all be based on the same foundational model. So things like ChatGPT, if you go in there and play around with it, you can go kind of into different modes. So you can ask it an engineering question and get code, or you can ask it, for example, what to put in your pie. So there's different structures of interaction, and these create different experiences, but it's on top of the same foundational model that has this super broad understanding. So with ChatGPT, just in the last couple weeks, we've seen that it's passed the bar. We've seen that it's passed medical boards. It passed an MBA course just in the last week. There was a company that said that they were going to use this technology in order to represent someone in court, and just this morning, they said that they were going to get sued if they did that. So every day, there's something new, some sort of weird dynamic that's happening around this technology as we're finding more and more things that we can do with it. So even on the technology side, things are moving exceptionally quickly. So some of the areas where we're seeing improvement, and this is a really good graphic to show the timeline of this improvement, both in terms of the quality of the images and the level of detail that we're getting in those images. So we're seeing speed improve dramatically. So just in the last year of working in this space, we've seen things like generating these images improve in quality, but also in speed, where it went from maybe a minute to generate an image to now we're down to a few seconds. The quality obviously has improved both in terms of the types of responses that we're getting from things like ChatGPT, but also in the images that we can generate. The context is also a really important improvement that we're seeing. When we go to generate an image, we might type in a long string of things that we want to see. And a year ago, it might have gotten one or two of those things. Now it's getting more and more adherent to the requests that we have. And the accuracy of the responses is another really important thing that continues to improve. And then the detail and resolution, as you can see in the examples here, coming from what was like StyleGAN over here to the current generation of technology that's creating really evocative images. So where's the focus today? So I showed you the foundational model and all of these things that are built on top of it. So these technologies are not always accurate, as I mentioned. Sometimes they take some liberties. And so many of you might have seen some of the liberties that have been taken with some of these models. I've got an example here where you can see this person's left hand is not exactly human. It's got an extra finger in there. We don't see the thumb, but we do see 5 fingers. So one of the important things in actually using these technologies in production is that we end up with what we really want. And we don't want it to take all the liberties depending on what the use case is. So there's a lot of companies that are working on these technologies that have vast ability to create things, and they're starting to narrow it down so that we have constraints. So if we want to end up with a particular result, we have the ability to control it. So many of us have already been using AI in our content creation and in the tools that we're using, whether it's things like fixing our spelling and grammar or affecting images as well. So we work with a lot of our partners in using AI in order to expedite the process of creation. And this is a good example of that.
Here I have a shot of a basketball player that I want to roto out. So I'll just click a few times on him and Runway will automatically create a roto mask and track the subject through my scene. You can add more keyframes if necessary, feather your mask results, and export in various options like green screen background for keying, alpha matte, ProRes video with alpha, or a PNG sequence.
So I have done this manually before, and I never want to do it again. If you've done it as well, I'm sure you have the same feeling about this. So, tools like this from Runway, similarly, there's great AI capabilities built into solutions like DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Creative Suite. These really help us to get much more quickly to what our vision is in terms of what we're trying to create. And they've become incredibly valuable tools in the workflow. So what generative AI does here is in many ways it sort of amps this up even further. So it allows us to drive even these same capabilities in ways that allow us to reach higher levels of quality. In many cases, generative AI also gives us the ability to essentially use a different paintbrush, where previously I would have had to go in here and paint around every single frame individually. Now a couple of clicks and I'm able to extract that individual from the background, not having to have them be in front of a green screen. But there are new paintbrushes that we can use that come out of these technologies as well. So a good example of that is the text that we type in to create an image. So this has a whole new learning curve around how we can create the compelling images that often act as the starting point for what becomes a creative pipeline. So here you can see that one of my colleagues at NVIDIA walked through and put together this series of words in order to get to this image that she created. So by understanding the syntax of what the model is looking for, we can get much closer, much more quickly to what it is that we want to create. So once you have this, the foundation for your starting point, what you end up with is developing, in some cases, whole new pipelines of creation. And this is a great example where you probably can't see it, but that was the starting point right up there. And it goes through this whole workflow of different ideas being developed, painting using traditional digital tools, and then layering on top of it with a variety of other tools as well. And what you end up with is a really beautiful image in the end. So this is another example of a different paintbrush. Rather than using a literal digital paintbrush or using words as a paintbrush, now we can start to use images as paintbrushes as well. So as I play this, look at the images that are being dragged into this interface. And what you get is essentially a mix of the two images. So we can start to adjust each of the influence of those images in what ultimately becomes the output, essentially pulling style from one and content from another. So all of these things can be mixed, and layers can be used as a part of a workflow in order to get faster and faster to the content that we really want in the end. So here's an example, again, of using images that Ashley created here, along with photographs along the top. And what you end up with is very interesting visual libraries of content by blending those two images. So another really interesting use of generative AI is taking content that was maybe not going to be usable for what we really hope to use it for, and being able to adapt it quickly to the particular purpose.
If I wanted to alter specific parts of an existing image, I can use the Erase and Replace tool, which will allow me to draw an area I want to alter and use a text prompt to alter it. I can change any part of my image as many times as I want and add my own ideas and style onto existing content.
So here it's combining both a paintbrush and text in order to create ultimately the composition that we're looking for. And here's another example. Maybe our camera person didn't quite frame the content as we ultimately needed, so we can go back and we can adjust it.
Infinite Image allows you to expand an existing input image by providing a text prompt, which will fill the frame with content-aware fill and seamlessly blend the two together. By using the same prompt, I'm able to generate outside edges of my frame and make it much more dynamic, all using generative AI. When I'm done, I can use the Erase tool to clean up parts of my expanded image and get rid of any artifacts that may have been generated along the way.
So here we're dealing with images, right? Certainly for the discussion that we have today, video is a much more relevant thing that we're dealing with. Certainly images are part of the content that we're creating, but what we really want is we want to do this with video. So let's look at an example of that.
Let's say I want to remove the artwork from this wall. With the inpainting tool, I can just brush over part of the scene that I want to get rid of, and Runway will automatically track and fill those brushstrokes with content-aware video. I can add more brushstrokes to my existing keyframe, or add more keyframes if I need them along the way. Switching back over to mask mode, you can see the art underneath, but changing back to result makes them magically disappear.
So this would have been incredibly laborious to try and change the video frame by frame using traditional digital editing methods. So the artificial intelligence here is ultimately not only helping us to remove that content, but to put content back into it and to track that with the video to have it show appropriately and not really to distract you from ultimately what we all want to do, which is to tell a story. So these are tools that are available today to become part of the pipeline. Most of the tools that we see in this space are running somewhere in the cloud. So you're interacting with servers that are in the cloud and ultimately processing these very often on NVIDIA GPUs. And there is an offline process here. Certainly, we can see that in the future, some of these capabilities are going to end up being something that we can do real time as well. And we're really excited for what's going to happen through our partnerships when this comes around the corner. So I want to show you something that one of our partners, Runway, shared with us that's sort of a peek ahead. So this is something that they're still working on, but what they really want to do is they want to provide the capability of kind of merging some of these technologies to allow us to do interesting things with video. So let me share that with you now. So here we have an individual on a tennis court. So let's say there's an incredible play that this guy makes, and we want to do a replay that's on a sandy beach. We can basically type in the text. It's generating the video background, extracting him, placing him on the moon, or maybe even placing him on Mars. So I'm really excited about the creative flexibility that this is going to offer people out there in terms of what they can create and the story that they can tell with the video that they're creating. So I apologize for doing this, but and especially right in the middle of my presentation. But I've really been tracking this sporting event, and And I just want to really quickly check on some scores, just a moment.
Hi, Jeremy. I know you're interested in the latest results from your favorite events at the World Games. The Germans won the cross-country yodeling event and Morocco took the win in teams juggling.
All right. Yeah. So obviously this is not a real event, but this avatar has been created using generative AI. So there's a couple of ways that avatars are being developed today. This is one of them, which is to create a video avatar, and ultimately, this can create content that's specific for me. So this is also very early in the stages of development, but pulling together some of these technologies in using generative AI to create the voices, using generative AI in order to modify the video so that everything syncs up from a lip sync perspective, and ultimately to deliver me something that's customized to me is something that's really exciting. So there are so many tools that are out there today that you can put into a pipeline and you can create some really interesting things. One example is a partner that we have called In3D. And so you can download the app on your phone, you can just prop up your phone, and you can stand in front of the camera, and within about 2 minutes, you can create an avatar like this. So that's what I did. And of course, I don't just want a video of me kicking my feet and shaking my hands. What I really want is I want to do some stunts. So I want to do stuff like this. But really, I love sports. So what I really want to be able to do is I wanted to be able to do a bicycle kick. And I can, and I don't even get injured. So these are really interesting tools that we can utilize in a pipeline, and ultimately we can create some really interesting content. And this stuff is really only beginning. I think when this stuff becomes really compelling and really interesting is when we start to string together a variety of these technologies, and ultimately we take input from text or from language, we understand that language, we come up with responses, and we provide some sort of natural interaction. So let me show you an example of that from my colleague here, our CEO, Jensen.
Let me welcome back Toy Jensen, an application we built with Omniverse Avatar. Remember, Toy Jensen is not recorded. He's completely real-time, making eye contact, making conversation, and fully animated. Hey, TJ, I got a few questions for you.
Sure, ask me anything.
What is synthetic biology?
Synthetic biology is about designing biological systems at multiple levels, from individual molecules up to whole cells and even multicellular assemblies like tissues and organs to perform specific functions. It is also known as symbio, which stands for synthetic life.
So this is only beginning. There's a lot of opportunity that we have, both in broadcasts of content, but also in sort of one-to-one kind of interactions in creating personalized content as well. So I appreciate you listening today, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.